Welcome to the first episode of Season 15 of the Trust Show podcast. Last year, I got so busy that I dropped all of my hobbies. And by the end of the year, I did not renew any of my club memberships. But in the last several months, I started feeling the gap, the void. And I started picking them up one by one. And I can see the difference. I feel differently. But you know, it's more than a personal sanity thing. Having a hobby can actually make you more trustworthy. I'll explain in this episode right after this. Welcome to the Trust Show. I'm Yoram Solomon, your host, the author of the Book of Trust, and facilitator of the Trust Habits Workshop. My mission is simple. I want to help you form habits that build your trustworthiness, because the answer to this question will have the biggest impact on your personal and professional success or failure. Can I trust you? First, I have to tell you what my hobbies are, right? So I actually have two main hobbies, and one of them is building and flying radio-controlled airplanes. I've been doing that since 2009, so about 15 years now. And the other is long-range shooting, which I guess I took at just about the same time, maybe a little later. But the one that I came back to in real force is the radio-controlled airplanes. I started building new ones and flying them. I joined a new club than the one that I had before. And, I used to fly them once a week, and now I'm kind of back to once a week. But life got really, really busy last year between between my keynotes and workshops, the podcast here, and teaching at SMU. Between all those things, I just got too busy and working on yet another book. Things got so busy that I just didn't have time for the hobby, and I dropped it, and I start missing it. I start feeling that I need to get back to it. So I did, as I said just recently, started building another plane, started flying it, now building yet another plane. I'm going there once a week, typically over the weekend to fly, and I feel better. But that's not what this episode is about. So first of all, having a hobby makes you a more relaxed person. Now, it's not that the hobby itself has to be something that's relaxed. And I'll tell you a story. I remember when I started taking flying lessons. This was about a year, not even a year since I moved from Israel to Silicon Valley. I started working for a small company. My boss was the CEO. And one day he said, why do you have to go flying? I mean, why do you take this new hobby? Shouldn't you spend more time maybe at work or at home with your wife? Why do you need flying? And I kind of resented it. Why is that your business? But he didn't go too deep in there. He didn't really try to stop me. He was, I think, more curious than anything. One day, we had a meeting. We had a morning meeting, and right after the morning meeting, he asked me, "Did you go flying yesterday?" And I thought to myself, "Here we go again. He's going to complain or offer me his advice about why not flying." And I said, "Yes, I did. How did you know that I went flying yesterday? I mean, I may have flew over his house, but still, he can't see me." And he said, "I just realized that after you go flying, the day after you go flying, you're a lot more relaxed, you're a lot more focused, you're a lot more creative." And he said, somehow this is helping. So flying is not a relaxed activity. It's not a relaxed hobby. I mean, when you fly full-size planes, when you're sitting inside a full-size plane, There are 42 gauges there in the cockpit. Any one of them shows a bad number, you're dead. There are thunderstorms and all kinds of weather that if you encounter it, if you go fly into it, you're dead. Now, you don't have your own sky. You share the sky with a whole bunch of 777s and other big and fast airplanes that, especially when they come in for landing, they're flying your altitudes. If you somehow don't know where you are and you find yourself in their path, you're dead again. So it's not a relaxed activity, but it's the fact that you take an activity that is intense and completely different than what you do, that when you get back to what you do, your work, my work, you're a lot more relaxed. Now, flying radio-controlled airplanes is not a relaxed activity. You're scared that you're going to lose the plane, that you're going to lose sight of the plane, that maybe you're going to crash it into someone. The smaller plane that I'm flying right now weighs about 11 pounds. So imagine something flying at 70, 80 miles per hour, weighing 11 pounds. That's a lot of energy if it crashes into something. I have jets as well, which are even faster. I remember once somebody told me that he was flying his jet, and for a second he looked down at the controller to see the telemetry data, and he said that was the last time I saw that plane. So it's not a relaxed activity. But the thing is that after an intense activity like this hobby, you become a relaxed person in what you do, in your work. What does that have to do with trustworthiness? People like to deal with relaxed people. People trust people who are relaxed. So the more relaxed you are, the less tight you are, the more you're going to be trusted. Because you're going to show that you're in control, that you're relaxed, that you know what you're doing. You're not completely wound up when you interact with them. So just the fact that this hobby makes you more relaxed when you interact with other people makes them trust you more. So that's one. 2 is that you can talk to other people about your hobby, as long as it's an appropriate hobby. In my case, radio-controlled airplanes. Maybe it's golf. Maybe it's something else. You can talk about your hobby to your peers, people who work with you, to your boss, to people who work for you, that you're their boss, to customers. You can talk about your hobby. I mean, let's not make this the whole thing, right? Everything you talk about, this should not be the focus of your interaction with them. But when they look at you as someone who has a hobby, it just makes you more human in their eyes. When you talk about your hobby, again, not you have to know when to stop. But when you talk about your hobby, people see you as more human. This is part of the personality compatibility component of my relative trust model. People trust people who are human, who are less robotic, who are less mission-driven and nothing else, who are less intense. I was actually blamed when I started working for one of the companies and I asked people for feedback. One of the feedbacks that I got was that I'm very intense. Actually, I think I got that feedback twice in 2 different companies. At that time, I should say I didn't really have a hobby. And since then, I did pick up the hobby. In fact, I picked up the hobby from the CEO of that second company. So people trust people who are human and are less intense, that know how to relax because of, they feel a higher personality compatibility with that person. So just the fact that you have a hobby and you share with them the fact that you have a hobby makes you more trustworthy. That's number 2. Number 3. So I'll start with the story. My daughter Maya She has a hobby. It's not something that you hear about every day. She does trapeze in a circus. And she's a member of a place where she goes and practices and learns new things. She has meets and she has performances. And during the summer, she typically coaches trapeze in a summer camp, actually in a different state. She flies there. So it's pretty unique, but she has a hobby. And in fact, she is now going back to school to get her doctoral degree, and she is working pretty hard, interning, essentially. And I told her that I would really, really suggest that she keeps the hobby, that she doesn't stop the hobby, because the hobby really helps. Stay with the trapeze. One day, she interviewed for a job. So her previous job was eliminated. They asked her to interview for another job in the same place. She interviewed for that job. What are the odds that her potential new boss would actually have the same hobby of trapeze in the same place? Guess what? That's all they talked about for the first 20 minutes of that interview. They talked about trapeze, about the people there, the specific place, and how they enjoy it, and so on. This is personality compatibility on steroids. I mean, when something like this happens to you, it's one thing that you share your hobby and you show that you're a human and people trust you more. It's another thing when you share a hobby that they feel very passionate about, especially if it's a very unique hobby. Because at that point, they see themselves in you. As I said, it's personality compatibility on steroids. How do you think that interview went? I'll give you a hint. She got the job. Eventually took another job because she needs to intern for her doctoral studies, but she got the job. And the first 20 minutes were just talking about their shared hobby. So it's one thing to talk about having a hobby and be perceived as human and therefore trusted. It's another thing that you actually share the same hobby, and you probably won't know that until that meeting time. And you're going to have to kind of throw it out there. Although you may do your homework, which is always a good idea before a meeting. Do your homework about the other person and see what they like. You may not see that on their LinkedIn, their professional social network profile, but you'd probably see it in some of the more social networks like Facebook or Instagram or something like that. And you will see, we have a very similar hobby. Maybe I really do need to talk about that. So as I said, this is where personality compatibility spikes. And this is another reason why people would trust you, because they see themselves in you. They see the commonality on the personal side and believe that there is a commonality and shared interest and shared perspectives on everything else. So this is going to be a pretty short episode, the first episode of season 15, and that's okay. Since I just got back to the hobby, and a friend of mine came yesterday and took pictures of me with the hobby, I figured I'll share this because thinking about it, I realized that having a hobby is something that will make you more trustworthy. Hobbies have many advantages, not just personal advantages, but advantages in affecting your trustworthiness. Number one, when you have a hobby, you're a more relaxed person, and people trust relaxed people more than intense people. Number two, when you talk about your hobby, it makes you more human, and people trust people who act in a more human manner. And finally, if for any reason they actually share your hobby, that's a home run. This is personality compatibility on steroids. So this is the link between hobbies and trustworthiness. I know it's not the most obvious link, but there is a link there. And that's it for today, for the first episode of Season 15. I hope that this made you think a little differently about trust, and today about hobbies as well. May trust be with you. This was The Trust Show. What would you like to know about trust and trustworthiness? Let me know and I'll answer it in a future episode. I would love to hear from you. Email me at yoram@thetrustshow.com. If you like this episode, subscribe to the show so you will automatically get notified when I release a new episode. Rate it. Write a review for this podcast because those ratings help not only you, but also others looking for podcasts just like this. If you're looking for more resources to learn about how to build trust, be trusted, or know who to trust, look up my workshops, online courses, books, or go to my website, trusthabits.com. And remember that the answer to these two questions will have the biggest impact on your personal and professional success or failure. Can I trust you? And can you trust me? Thank you for listening or watching The Trust Show.